Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of work on the foreground now. I won't be finishing it, but I want to show you a few techniques that you can use. I'm pretty happy with the way the background looks at this point. There's some brush strokes in it, which I like. I like that to look like it's still a painting. It doesn't need to be totally smooth. I think I could probably lighten up this area, moving into the shadow so that it doesn't look so choppy there. But I want to show you some things to do with brushwork in the foreground. So I've used orange as the wash, and I'm going to use orange to build up layers. When I look at this cone, it looks to be close to this value, the really light value, and the shadows have some of this more darker gray, and that means that I'm going to use these two oranges. So I've got a lot of the super light orange mixed up in my palette, and some of the regular orange as well. I have this printed out, and I like to keep the image very close to my painting so that I can constantly compare the values and how I'm doing in matching those values. And that edge is bugging me, so I'm gonna cut it off. There we go. So I'm gonna start out with this kind of like middle value orange of the three lightest ones. And this is getting really dry, so I'm going to add a few drops of water to the paint inside the palette to mix it up. Otherwise, it's gonna be too stiff and kind of chunky when I paint it. So that's what I'm going to start this with, and I am going to paint this whole cone with that middle value. And I'm painting as though the sphere isn't even there because it's behind the sphere. So I'm just gonna kind of like layer on top of it. And I've overlapped the background a little here. So using a dry brush, I'm gonna pick that up to get rid of it so it doesn't overlap the blue that I liked. And now I've got this middle value. I'm going to let that extend and overlap some of the blue that I have here using the side of the brush. And I need a little bit thicker because the blue is still kind of showing through. So I'm going to add some thicker paint into the brush and then guide it down along that side. And if you want a perfectly flat edge, you can use a ruler for this. If you want like a totally straight line, and you've got like a ruler or a piece of cardboard even, like maybe cut a cereal box and let the cereal box hard edge be the flat edge for yourself. I might have to build up a couple more layers of paint because the blue is still, it was a little wet still, so now it's bleeding and showing through. You can see it's already mixed in with the paint there. And see, it's like on the brush even. Okay, so now I want to add this shadow along the left side. So I need a little bit of the darker orange. I'm going to mix that in here. Because I want it to match more like this orange right there. And again, as though the sphere isn't even in the way, I'm going to paint that dark orange. Okay, now a cone is a curved surface. So if I leave this dark value the way that it is right now, it does give the illusion that it's curving a little bit. But another thing that's really helpful is something called directional painting. So if I get the brush a little bit wet with some of that darker value, and I curve the brush stroke the way that the cone is curved, so I'm like imitating, like, you know, the cone on the bottom kind of looks like a smile. So I'm gonna imitate that smile while I'm painting. And that helps to give the illusion that it's a curving surface. And that's called directional shading or directional painting. Up here in the top, I'm noticing this little tiny corner that's lighter than the foreground orange. And I'll use a little tiny detail brush for that with a really light, if I can find it. Oh, there it is, I found it. It's right here, it was here the whole time. So I wanna dig into the really, really light orange. And I'm gonna use that trick again where I'm kind of painting on the palette so that I can bring the tip of the brush to a point. Oh, I think I want to use just straight up white there. Here we go. And because that bled, I'm gonna add white, straight up white on the edge too, and let it dry, and then add another coat of that light orange on top of it so I can eliminate that little blue that bled through. It's still showing up. What a stinker. Okay, so it might take a couple more coats of that. And I think maybe a little bit more darker orange over there on the edge. And when I'm satisfied with it, I can start painting the sphere on top of it, or maybe the tabletop first. I think the tabletop first.